Hi, this is Amanda. This is about dealing with Child Protective Services, which is CPS, in Ohio, which is Portage County, and then West Virginia, Nicholas County. Back in 2001, I lost custody of my, at the time, 3.5-year-old daughter and my 10-month-old baby. My 3-year-old was abused. I didn't know that she was abused because when I seen her, she just had like a little cut. Well, eventually, over hours later is when the bruises came about. Well, I didn't know anything back then much about child abuse because I've never been around children that were physically abused. And so I took her outside to ask my neighbors, and then someone called my mom, or I called my mom, something like that. Well, my mom showed up, and my mom asked me what happened, and I was like, I don't know. Well, at the time, my boyfriend lived with me. Before my mother got there, and when I seen the bruises, he was accusing me and I was accusing him of, leaving these bruises on my daughter. Well, he ends up taking our 10-month-old with him because he said that if I can do this to my 3-year-old, what makes him think that I can't do this to my 10-month-old, or our 10-month-old. So he ends up leaving. Me not knowing that my daughter was abused, anyways, my mom came, and my mom's like, hey, you know what, go get her shoes and socks, we'll take her to the hospital. I'm like, okay. So I go in the house, I go get my daughter's shoes and socks, and get her ready, and the cops are there, ambulance are there. Well, they check her out or whatever, and they tell me, hey, she's been abused. I bawled because I had no clue that what had happened. Here it is still 11 years later, and I still have no clue about how it went down, how it happened. And when the cops asked me what happened to her, my biggest mistake was telling them I didn't know, because I didn't know. Well, eventually they ended up finding the father of my 10-month-old. They got him in custody. They made me sign paperwork stating that I didn't do this to my daughter, and that I know for a fact that my daughter's father did it, which at the time I didn't know, if he did it, and they told me in order to keep my children, I would have to state that he did it. So I went ahead and signed the paperwork stating that, he did it. Well, that evening they did remove my children, both of my girls, from me. They gave them over to my mother, and I ended up going to court the next day. I had no lawyer, of course, because everything happened on a Sunday, and Monday I went to court. I had no lawyer. Well, they gave me paperwork. They said, here, sign this. They told me what it was, and, we read some of it and then just went ahead and signed it. Well, here to find out that the paperwork that I signed wasn't even signed by the judge. The only signature that was on it was mine. I make a long story short. My daughter ended up having to go from my mother to her biological dad's mom. And dealing with CPS, it was very difficult. If I cried, it was stop, grow up, I'm faking. My daughter would have temper tantrums. I did get to have visitation rights with them. I did in fact take a polygraph test, and they asked me, is there any questions that I want them to ask me, and I told them yes. So I took the polygraph test. It was like a few days, or like a couple weeks later, after the children were removed. And I passed it. The cops dropped charges on me for child endangerment and child abuse. I went to court for the child endangerment because the state took over, and I ended up getting, what was it, I told the prosecutor, I was like, I cannot have this on my record, because if I do, then I can't get my kids back. I really want to get my kids back. That was my #1 priority. Well, instead, he ended up putting down the child endangerment, but it was stepped down from a felony down to a misdemeanor. So I got 2 years probation, which is, to me, was okay, no big deal, because I've never really been in trouble. The guy that went to jail, he got 6 months in jail and only got for domestic violence. I had to take parenting and anger management classes. I was at a visit one day with my daughters, and my caseworker tells me that she has to go, that another caseworker is going to take over because she has to go to court. Well, to find out the next day, the reason why the caseworker had to go to court was because my oldest daughter's dad was going to court that day for custody, and he got custody without me being there. And let's see, my daughter has been, since she's been in his house, been living with him, since my daughter's been living with him, she has been physically abused 3 times. Well, sorry, take it back, twice. Once by her first stepmom, and then the second time, well, there was no marks or anything, because by the time she was finally able to tell me, it was too late. The next time I took him to court, actually took him to court for the second abuse was just back in 2011. The stepmom got away with it. CPS was called from myself and the school. I had government people on my side. The father made it out to be that we were all lying, even the assistant principal. The judge believed the father over the assistant principal, myself, CPS, everybody. And I have been mentally, emotionally abused, not only by CPS, but by the father. Back then, when my daughter was first removed, I had to go for counseling, and I was diagnosed with some kind of upsetting stomach, which my psychiatrist only put that down because he didn't want me quack shopping, which is what he told me, that's what child services would make me do. Which at the time was kind of funny, because I had my gallbladder removed back when my daughter was like 6 months old. Well then, like, after child services was not involved anymore, I ended up getting on depression medication, and the courts gave me visitation rights for overnights. Within 2 months of having the overnight visits, I got a phone call, from just after I just got done dropping my daughter off, from my mother, telling me that there was a moving truck at my daughter's father's house. And I go there, and here there's a moving truck, and find out that they're moving to North Carolina, which I was supposed to get a 30-day notice, and I never did. I took him to court, and it was okay, according to the courts, because he gave the courts a 30-day notice, and not me. But he told them that he did, and I never received it. And if I did, it was that day that he was moving. Let's see. I ended up with depression, like I said. I was put on Prozac about 2 years after my daughter was taken away, because I didn't want CPS knowing that, you know, I was depressed, because then I would be immature and needed to grow up. What was it, 8 years later, I ended up with, well, finding out that I have ADD, still depression. I ended up with anxiety, and the only conclusion I can come up with is that with all the mental and emotional abuse that I've had to deal with CPS, you know, all the caseworkers, my lawyers, and, you know, my daughter's father, it's been a toll on me. Oh, and I did get back my 10-month-old. She came back to live with me 6 months later after I lost custody of her. I never did get back my 3-year-old. I only get to see her now twice a year. West Virginia, when I went to court last year, that's what was that's what they gave me, was twice a year. When I went to court last year because my daughter was abused by the stepmom, my daughter testified that whoever she doesn't live with, that she wants to only see them twice a year, which I thought it was kind of funny because she wanted to come and live with me. She always has. And so I thought it was kind of funny because, you know, twice a year, I'm like, wow, she only wanted to see her dad twice a year. Well, now she regrets it. My daughter is 14. She's going to be 15. She is dealing with a lot still. A lot of mental, emotional abuse. You know, a very beautiful girl. And there's, you know, nothing that we can do. I tried going against CPS. It doesn't work. Let's see. Oh, when my daughter was younger, one of her brothers was touching her, so CPS was called on them then. So they've had CPS called on them, as I know of, as maybe 3 times. Let's see. My youngest daughter's father's out of jail. We actually wanted to go on the Steve Wilkos show, and my youngest daughter's father wanted to go. Of course, I wanted to go. I'm the one, well, my daughter was the one that contacted him. And my oldest daughter's father refused to go. It's a lot of suspicious stuff. And like I said, nothing was ever proved on who abused her. And it's very aggravating and very stressful for myself, my daughter, my mother, my dad, you know, my sister. And my sister actually is, because of all the stuff that has happened, has turned to drugs. She was physically abused by my oldest daughter's father, which he got away with that too. When she was like 13, he punched her in the head and she ended up with a concussion, a sprained neck. My mom pressed charges and went to court, and the father got away with it. A lot of emotional stress my sister's been under from all this. My mother suffers from depression, so does my dad. My youngest daughter, she ended up suffering. She went from, back then, she went from talking mama, dada, to not wanting to talk. She finally started talking again when she was 3, and I had to put her in speech class because of it. And that's really it, I believe, about it. I mean, it's a lot of stress, and like, I mean, you know, it really is. It's really aggravating. But I'm gonna get off here. Thanks for watching. Bye.